Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Todd Klindt. I'm doing my very first Netcast. I got this idea a couple of weeks ago. Shane Young and I did a Netcast for the SharePoint Pod Show guys. And it was a really good time. Rob and Nick made it look like a lot of fun. And it seemed to be fairly well received. And so, and it came out last Tuesday. I thought it didn't come out as bad as I thought it was going to. So I thought I might try one on my own. And then last week also, I noticed that Adam Carolla, he's started doing netcasts of his own. Obviously, I'm no Adam Carolla, but what I was inspired by was his ability to just do it by setting up a microphone in his living room, him and a buddy, and recording it and putting it out there. And not a lot of production, which is something I wouldn't be any good at. So I thought, what the heck, I'll try it. Now, the tough part was coming up with any content that anybody would give a damn about. And I'm still not completely sure that I've accomplished that, but I thought I would try to make one of these once a week, just of the things that I've played with during the week. Things that have come out, things that I've tried that haven't worked, things like that. Kind of a little diary. I don't put blog posts out as much as I'd like to, just because when I do a blog post, I like it to be very thorough, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of research. So this is just going to kind of be crib notes from the things that I've accomplished during the week. So hopefully this will be entertaining and maybe a little informational, and I think you all have a good time. So we'll start out this week's excitement, well actually last week's excitement. This is the stuff that I did the week of, I don't know, March 8th through the 13th, 2009. The big thing that came out this week is the February cumulative update for SharePoint 2007 came out. Now I know what you're all saying, how can this be the February cumulative update when
Hi, no, you have not walked into a time warp or anything like that. I thought it would be fun, with this being my 200th episode, to start off with a little snippet of what the first episode of my Netcast looked like, just to kind of get a feel for how far I've come. This being my 200th episode, I've gotten a little nostalgic, so it was interesting to watch the first episode again and just see where I was coming from. So for those of you that have the audio-only version of this, that little snippet was obviously the audio from the first episode. It might be worth it this time to go out to maybe YouTube or whatever and see how it looked. You can go to youtube.com/Todd Klindt Netcast and fire up the 200th episode, and there's that few second bit from Netcast number 1. It's interesting to see how much better the production has gotten. For instance, the room that I do the Netcast in now, this room didn't even exist 5 years ago when I did that first Netcast out in the basement there. So it's interesting to see how much better things have gotten, how much weight I've gained, how much hair I've lost, I guess, in the last 5 years. But that was fun. I will put the first episode out maybe on YouTube or maybe somewhere out there if you want to download the whole thing in its glorious splendor. It's funny. It's about a 47 meg file. It's about the size that the audio files are these days, but it's a fun watch. So without further ado, go ahead, and here's episode number 200. Thanks for listening. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Klindt's, can you believe it, 200th SharePoint Netcast. 200 of these things that I have done. Tonight's 200th episode is recorded live Monday, May 19th, 2014. Shout out to the Netcast hooligans here in the chat room, however many of them there are, 20 some of them in there, stuck around. We'll call on you guys here in a minute. Don't get all excited. You guys are just too excited right now. I'm, of course, your host and have been for 200 straight episodes. I haven't missed an episode of Todd Klindt's SharePoint Netcast. I am, of course, Todd Klindt. I am the host, the creator, the producer, the director, the janitor, the best boy, whatever that is, the gaffer, the grip, the Foley artist. I'm all of those things. I am all of this for the Netcast. And this wouldn't be possible without a lot of things. I'll get to that in a minute. But the first folks I need to thank are Rackspace. I just realized now that I forgot to hang my flag back up. But imagine a very majestic-looking Rackspace flag back there. Oh, here, I'll show you what it looks like. Very majestic-looking. enough for those guys. So anyway, the folks at Rackspace, though, they make this all possible. They pay my wages. They got me that monitor. I stole that PowerPoint template from them. Couldn't do this all without them. And to show my appreciation to them, I'm going to send you guys all to sharepoint.rackspace.com. There's a lot of good SharePoint stuff there. There is also a video game, and if you play it from sharepoint.rackspace.com, it actually counts as work. That's the rule. I checked on the internet. That's the rule. If you go to sharepoint.rackspace.com and scroll down, you will see Fanatiblaster, which is a cool little game. It's kind of like, you know, Defender or Robotron or something back from the old days. Great fun. We have that set up when we were at Tech Ed last week. We had that set up, and well, we'll get to that. I'll talk about that at the Tech Ed thing. But there is actual financial incentive for you to go out and play that game, Fanatiblaster, at sharepoint.rackspace.com. Ask me about that at the Tech Ed session of tonight's Netcast. I'll tell you all about it. But check them out at sharepoint.rackspace.com. Okay, production notes, still kind of fighting some audio-video sync issues. I updated the Logitech software that I record with. I updated that 3 or 4 weeks ago, and everything's kind of been a little out of whack since then. I need to investigate that a little more, see what's up with that, but that's been a little hinky, so I apologize. Now, I know 90% of you do the audio-only version, so you're obviously not seeing any audio-video sync issues if you're the audio-only variety. But for those of you that are watching this on YouTube at youtube.com/Todd Klindt Netcast, or if you're downloading it from my site or whatever, you'll notice that things aren't exactly in sync. I am on it. I promise I am. As with every production issue that I've had for the last 5 years, we eventually figured it out. I have no reason to believe this one is going to be any stronger. So we will take care of that. Tonight we had a fun little issue, and I initially thought that my internet went out, but what I realized this is the beauty of these one-man shows like this. When I was setting up that light over there, I actually had to go snap the battery in and turn it on. I didn't realize when I did that I tripped over the power plug to my router, I guess. And somehow I was able to unplug the router in such a way that my machine lost internet access or lost access to my DNS servers or something. I don't know what the hell it did, but that's so I was offline here for a little bit. That threw me behind, but I'm all good. It's all in place now. But other than that, production's going pretty well. Trying to figure out a way to get a new server, our new machine, so that I can bring people in. I've been kind of speccing that deal out. Would like to do that. All right, in the chat room, I would appreciate if you guys are a little more supportive of my foibles and didn't mock quite so heavily. I could have broken my neck tripping over that cable. Nobody ever thinks of that. I could have poked an eye out. It's always fun until that. I heard somebody recently said this. They're like, I want to go up to somebody who's got an eye patch on and say, was it fun right up until that happened? Which sounds horribly incompassionate. But I think you guys should be, you almost lost me. I could have fallen, broken my neck, hit my head, punctured my spleen. It could have been horrible. But we're working on that. I'm trying to finagle, trying to figure out a way to get a new workstation so I can expand this thing a little bit. I need more power, and I need more CPUs, more GBs or GHZs or something. And I need more water. But we're working on that. But again, the audio-visual sync thing is kind of the thing I'm fighting with right now, because as we all know, it is always something. But I'm on it. You guys deserve the best. All right, on to the topics. So first, let's just talk about the elephant in the room right now. This is episode number 200. Now, I planned on getting some party hats and things like that, and I just flat out forgot. I was even at Walmart 3.5 hours ago, probably walked right past the very thing that I wish that I had, didn't see it. So imagine a party hat and little blowers that blow, and I'm going to put 200 on the wall behind me and all that. But this is 200th episode, so this is crazy. This year, it was kind of a big year for landmarks. In March, I celebrated the 5-year anniversary of this mess. So March of 2009 was when I got the first idea to do this thing. And I think I talked about this a little bit in March, but we'll rehash it. Nostalgia, you know, it's always good. In March of 2009, I'd been watching podcasts for a while. Kind of the big ones that I watched at the time were some of Leo Laporte's, Windows Weekly, that kind of stuff. And then Dignation was one of them that I watched a lot. And Adam Carolla had a podcast that I watched a lot, or listened to, because his is audio only. But the whole scene was just kind of happening. And I thought, I could do that. The guys in Dignation, they just sit on a couch. Now, they sit on a couch and they have, tens of thousands of dollars worth of cameras and lighting behind them, but they're just a couple of dudes sitting on a couch shooting the breeze. And I'm like, I can do this. This is a good time. And I had been an MVP for 3 or 4 years at that point, and I was kind of into this whole spreading knowledge thing. And there were times when I wanted to blog something but didn't want to go to the trouble of writing it out. Blog posts are a lot of work. My technical blog posts, I probably put 2 hours into each one of those. I know the end result would not suggest that amount of work went into it, but blog posts take a lot of work. I try to check my facts. I try to check all my examples to make sure everything always works. And sometimes I just don't want to go to all that effort. Sometimes I just want to chat about stuff and just kind of tell about it. And that was this podcast, this Netcast, was kind of an outlet for that. For things I just wanted to chat about, but didn't want to go to all the trouble of fact checking and researching and all that. I would just I would talk about it here, and it turned out to be a really helpful thing. And it turned out to be a helpful thing for a lot of reasons. Number one, I keep all of my notes in a big OneNote file. So I've got OneNote notes, I think, all the way back to episode number 1. Apparently episode, close. Maybe, yeah. So I've got the notes all the way back to Netcast number 1, and so it's a great repository for things for me to find, things that I don't end up blogging, but I'm like, oh, there was this thing, something about Windows Phone. I can just go into OneNote and search my Netcast notes, and if I talked about it, it shows up in here, which is great. But then turns out you folks find it kind of helpful too, and that was great. There's an unexpected benefit of that. I haven't checked within the last couple of weeks, but I recently did. Well, let me see. I can't find it here. But I recently turned in my MVP renewal thing, and I was amazed at how many Netcast downloads I get every year. And it was, it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, something like that. But roughly it ended up being between 2,000 and 3,000 downloads per Netcast. It takes about a month. There's a tail. I know this is going to come as a shock to you folks, but there are some people that don't rush out to their computers and immediately download one of these when it's available. So the tail's a couple months long. But after a couple of months, after 8 weeks or so, I normally get, between 2,000 and 3,000 downloads per episode. So you figure I put 40 of these out a year, 40-ish. You kind of get an idea what those downloads are like. So it's got some value. And another one of the things that I've done, and this happened last week, is I've said every time I'm going to go somewhere, SharePoint conference, Tech Ed, SB TechCon, whatever, I tell folks, if you haven't met me, or even if you have, hell, I don't care, come find me. I'll be wherever, and introduce yourself. Tell me what you like about the Netcast, all that kind of stuff. And every time I go to one of these things, I get some people that do that. So it's awesome meeting new people. Jack in the chat room said it's very clear that all the 20-somethings on MySpace are my biggest fans. Probably so. Those millennials, they get a bad rap, but they've got good taste in podcasts. So it's been kind of a value for that, and it's just been a great experience learning all the audio video stuff. When I was in high school and all that, I was obviously in like the AV club and did all that kind of nerdy stuff. Because fortunately I didn't have all that social life stuff getting in the way, so I had a lot of time for things like AV club and band and choir and all that. So that was always stuff that was of an interest of mine. So this was just kind of the next evolution of that, taking the thing that I love doing during the day, doing the cool AV stuff and all that. So it's been a great fun for me, and I wanted to take the opportunity here at number 200 to kind of send out some thank yous. And this is by no means even close to being an exhaustive list of people. These are just the people that I thought of right before I went on the air. But first, those of you that do watch the video or watch this live, the ones of you that are in there now, you'll notice that the background looks a lot better now. Due to the constant prodding from Jack Frew, I have lights now. I've got 3 banks of LED lights that I've got shining now on the backdrop that kind of gives it a little more dimension. Doesn't make it seem quite so flat, which I think is good. And Jack had been working on that for, I'm going to say, a year, maybe more. He would email me ideas and stuff like that, and I could just never execute on any of it. I could never make it happen. I could never decide what I wanted to get or what I wanted to do or any of that kind of stuff. And so finally at the SharePoint conference, here a couple of months ago, Jack just bought a bunch of lights, took them to Las Vegas with him, and forced me to take them and sent them home with me and said, try it, damn it. And because of that, we got what we have today. So, and it looks much better. I should have done this 3 years ago, though I don't think the LED lights would have worked very well. But thanks to Jack for all that. It makes the video. And the other thing is, Jack and I have, over the last however many years, 3 or 4 years, traded notes back and forth on microphones. He also sent me this pop filter. So Jack has been a good technical resource for me, so I appreciate that. It's always good having somebody to bounce ideas off of for those kind of things. Another recent change that I made was Mario. Mario, I met him at the SharePoint conference. He's been listening to the Netcast for a while, and he is a musician, professional sound engineer, and said, your content is good. Mario's a terrible liar, but your audio is horrible, and here are all the things you should do to fix your audio. And it works pretty well. I'm doing some things with compression and all that stuff that I knew about but didn't know how to do. Mario went above and beyond to fix the audio, and I owe him a lot for that. For the last couple of years, I've gone to the New Media Expo, which is all about blogging and podcasting and all that kind of stuff. And the first year that I went, one of the sessions that I went to, the guy said, there's nothing more important for a podcast than audio. Nothing. People will tune in if you've got crappy content. People will tune in if you've got crappy video. People will tune in for the most part if you're not real consistent, but if you've got bad audio, if there's a buzz in the background or a screeching or something, people will shut you off immediately. And he was absolutely right. And my audio had been bad for several years. 5 years, turns out. But Mario kind of got me pushed in the right direction. Even downloaded a copy of Camtasia, which is what I use to edit all this. Downloaded a copy of Camtasia, walked through it, took screenshots, put them in a Word doc. Sure. I mean, he made it idiot-proof. My 6-year-old daughter could have set it up when he got done with it. But I've gotten compliments on my audio since then. People have said, hey, those changes were really great. So I appreciate that. A shout-out to Mario for that. Another person who is not in the chat room tonight, I guess Mario isn't either, Dan Usher. So Dan Usher started a tradition several years ago, and Lori Gowan's been carrying it since then, that on my birthday, Dan got this idea a few years ago about doing a donation drive. And that has been one of the coolest pieces of all of this, probably the most beneficial piece of all of this. Over the last 5 years, thousands of dollars, and that is not an exaggeration, thousands of dollars have been given to charities, both local to me, and I think one year we did the Haiti folks, and one year we just had people do local stuff, but thousands of dollars have been given by my listeners to charities based off of this idea that Dan had. And I'm honest to God almost tearing up now thinking about it. But charity is one of the things that I do a lot of. I give a lot of money to local charities, things like that. It's something that as I've gotten older and had a little bit of success, I sort of feel the drive to give back and help other people. And I talked about that a little bit at the beginning, the first couple of years of the podcast, not a lot because I didn't want to sound preachy. People know about that stuff. They don't need me to tell them to do it. But Dan honed in on that, and when I think it was the first birthday, so it would have been my birthday in 2010, came around, he got this idea that everybody should get a birthday gift for me, and that gift should be donating to charity. And that was just amazing. That was, I don't need things. If anybody would have gotten the idea to give me something, that would have been great, but I don't need that. But giving the money to charities, like the local food pantry was the one they did last year, and there's a scholarship committee from my high school, things like that. It's just been amazing. So again, and Lori's saying in the chat room, at least $5,000 has been given to charity, and that's all you guys. I mean, I've matched it a bunch of years, and I've done it a bunch on my own, but you guys have been the impetus for that, and Dan was kind of the brains behind that. So I think that's probably the most powerful thing that's come out of this, and it means a lot to me. It always makes me tear up when I think about it. So thanks to Dan for that. Also wanted to give a shout out to Lori Gowan. She does a bunch of stuff. She led up the donation drive this last year for my 40th birthday. And I know that she was like a bulldog on that, sending emails out, getting that all going. I think we did a record number. I think she raised $1,600 on her own. So that was just this year. And that was a pretty amazing feat. So you guys, I mean, obviously you guys all did that, but Lori was good about wrangling all that and emailing everybody and kind of staying on that. So that was good. Lori also has, for the last however long, taken the notes during my show. So if you ever go to the show notes and see the links and the times and all that kind of stuff, that is all Lori's doing. I put it together, but she takes care of all that. If you're watching the video, every time you see a lower third, that's because Lori provided me with that information, and that's when I said it. So that has been incredibly helpful. I know that the video part is not the biggest part of this, but I think for those that do watch the video, those are very helpful pieces to have. Another thing that's kind of a behind-the-scenes thing is that Lori tech edits every blog post that I do. Tech edits and copy edits every blog post that I do. And I know, again, it probably doesn't feel like any of my stuff goes through that kind of a rigorous editing process, but when I did my self-published book a couple of years ago, it was made very clear to me that my blog posts were not nearly as grammatically and technically correct as I had thought they were. And I wanted to make sure that quality stuff goes out there. And so that was something that Lori volunteered to do a while back, and I took her up on it. And now every blog post that I post, she reads over either before I post it or right after I post it, and helps me fix grammar errors, sentence errors, all that kind of stuff. And I definitely think that helps the quality of my blog, because I don't think very many blog posts that have any substance in them have gone out without her saying, you forgot a word here, you used the wrong version of this word here, this flat out doesn't work, you're drunk. So it definitely increases the quality of my blog. So the other thing that she does is she pesters the hell out of me. If I forget to post a netcast, if I get busy at work and don't get one rendered out or get it published, she jumps on Skype and gives me a kick in the pants. So I appreciate that. And she was actually, it was interesting. She's helped me a bunch the last couple of years. And when I went to NMX last year, the New Media Expo, there was a session on how to get people to volunteer to help, with your blog or your podcast. And that kind of gave me some ideas on how to maybe leverage that a little bit more in the future and how to handle that a little more. But that was a good thing. I would have never thought somebody would do that, but I've got a couple of people that have done that. So that's good. So thanks to all those folks that have made this production just better. I couldn't have done it without them. And then finally, I want to thank all of you. If you can hear this, thank you. Even if this is just your first episode, it's been immensely satisfying doing this Netcast over the last 5 years and over the last 200 episodes. I've made a bunch of friends. I really can't go anywhere in the world without there being somebody there that greets me with open arms and wants to take me around and show me the place. And I mean, just literally for me living in Iowa, the other side of the world is Australia. I mean, it's, if you do the whole latitude and longitude thing, the complete opposite of where I'm at is the ocean to the west of Australia there. So the farthest I've ever been away from home is Sydney, Australia. I went down there last year, and Bruce Albany was one of the guys that listens to this, and he's like, hey, we need to go out for lunch. I was 15,000 miles from home, and there was somebody there who's like, hey, I listened to your Netcast. It's great. Let's go out to lunch. That's amazing. It's been very satisfying to get the positive reaction that I get from you guys. And like tonight when I was fighting the network issues, I'm just like, man, this is such a pain. Ugh, I would love to be sitting upstairs eating some Girl Scout cookies right now, but I can't do it because of you guys. So I appreciate all that. It's made it worth every pain in the butt that I've had doing this thing. So thanks very much. And also, I've said this 100 times, and I've gotten some takers on it. If there's anything I can do better or do differently, I welcome the feedback. I would love the feedback. It's why we got the lights. It's why we got the audio. It's why we've got a bunch of those things. You can email me at todd.klindt@rackspace.com or hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt. So a couple of notes from the chat room. Jack's asking if Thin Mints are my Girl Scout cookie of choice. Yes, they are. And Lori is saying, I can't believe you still have Girl Scout cookies. And, well, so the thing about that, I normally eat Thin Mints, but we are all out of those. So now the Girl Scouts give these shortbread things called Thanks-a-Lots or something like that. So that's all we've got left. And I suspect tonight after the Netcast, we won't have any of those left either. But do love that. And that's another thing I like supporting the Girl Scouts. So that's all good stuff. But again, I would love to improve this, however, so by all means, give me your feedback. And for the next couple of minutes, if folks in the chat room have any particular moments over the last 5 years or 200 episodes that they would like to bring up and I could chat about, can't promise to get them all on, and with the lag, I might miss them. But if you've got any particularly funny or insightful Netcast moments, shout them out in the chat room now, and I'll see what we can do. We'll see here, and then after that we will talk about tech ed. Anybody in the chat room got anything for me? So Meryl, I just saw on Twitter, photoshopped a hat and blower on me. I think I'm going to steal that. Meryl, if you think about it, email me that picture. I like it. Yep, so Lori mentions Eric Harlan. Thank God that guy's not here tonight. When I first started doing this, I was using a different internet broadcasting thing. Right now I do this with Ustream. Have been for the last couple of years. Before that, I used one called Stickcam. Now, Stickcam might have had some less respectable beginnings, but one of the things that Stickcam would do is it would let you show the 5 of the viewer cameras along with the broadcaster. So my camera would be on there, and then everybody who was watching it live, we could see 5 different viewers. And Lori brings up that Eric Harlan and some other folks would try to make me laugh, see what they could see. Darren Bishop was another one. Darren Bishop showed up a lot of times with different hats or masks or something and tried to get me to break up and laugh during the Netcast. Often quite successful, and that was good. So Jack and Lori are talking about that wasn't necessarily a Netcast, but I had a great PowerShell blog post where I accidentally renamed all of my databases to SharePoint_config because I didn't recognize the difference between -EQ and the equal sign in PowerShell. Always a favorite. Let me see if I can find that one quick. And that has been a great, so that happened years ago, and that has been a great learning for every time I do a PowerShell class. I always bring that one up and talk about that. Kim mentions the commercials. Yeah, Stickcam didn't have the same commercials as Ustream. The good news, Kim, is for $4 a month, you can make all the commercials go away. Well worth it. Pay those guys the $4. They've done good stuff making this happen. So, yep, that's good. See if we got any others here before we we move on. There have been some good moments. That's one thing I just can't take myself too terribly seriously. So that comes up. Funny stuff. All right. Well, again, thanks. Thanks for the last 200 episodes. One thing I started doing a couple of years ago was trying to be more consistent, and I know the irony of that considering I didn't do one last week. But Hanselman had Scott Hanselman. If you don't listen to Hansel Minutes, you should do that. Scott Hanselman had a podcast on being consistent, and it's tough for your listeners if you're not consistent. So I took that to heart a couple of years ago and have been trying very hard to make sure that I do a lot of these. I can't do 52 of them a year, but try to do high 40s. I forget exactly where I'm at now, but try to do a lot of them and be consistent for you guys. So, okay, I will move on. Enough of the nostalgia and all that. The next thing that I needed to talk about was Tech Ed. So the whole reason that I ditched you guys last week was because I was in Houston for Tech Ed, and I was busy Monday night. I can't remember what particular event was going on, but I was busy at Tech Ed. And so the first thing I want to say was, again, a couple of brave Netcast listeners that I didn't already know came up, found me at either the Rackspace booth or the SharePoint booth, and I think one of them was at the PowerShell booth even. I did a stint at the Power Scripting booth there with the scripting guy, Ed Wilson. But a couple of folks came up and said, hey, you don't know me, but I listen to your Netcast. And that, I'm always happy about that, because I know how, I don't want to say intimidating, but how embarrassing that can be to just walk up to a complete stranger and say, hi, you don't know me, but I know all about you. That takes a lot of guts, and so I really appreciated it. So that came up last week. Loved that. Had a great time at Tech Ed. Got to catch up with a lot of folks that I haven't gotten to see for a while. Always good for that. It's always like a high school reunion, that kind of stuff. So Shane and I did a all-day netcast on installing and configuring SharePoint. It was a great time. We did it at SharePoint conference, so it was fairly well rehearsed. We had a good time with that. Lots of people, lots of great questions. Had, I don't know, 90 some people in the room. It was good. Jack asks if that's stalking. The cool thing, Jack, is I actually enjoy the attention. So I think you can't stalk me because I'm kind of willing. I've got some bushes on the north side of my house. I set cookies on a plate there, so in case any of my stalkers want to hide in the bushes and look in the windows, I want to make sure they've got something to eat and all that. I don't mind at all, but again, it is weird. I mean, I've done that. I've obviously got all my tech nerd crushes too, and it is tough sometimes to just walk up to somebody who looks like they're busy and say, "Hey, hi." So I appreciate that. So never feel embarrassed about that. If we're ever like at a SharePoint Saturday or user group meeting or whatever, by all means come up and say, "Hey." Anybody in the chat room here that I've met in person will, testify to the fact that I'm pretty friendly, and I definitely go out of my way to make whoever that is, anybody who talks to me, if they're going to take the time, going to give me their time, both listening to the Netcast and coming up, I'm going to make them feel special. So by all means do that. But had a couple of those. Shane and I did the all-day session, and then I worked at the scripting guy booth for an hour or so on Monday, and got to catch up with those guys and answer some PowerShell questions and just hang out with Ed Wilson and Teresa Wilson, the scripting wife. Don Jones was there, just all the, Jeff Hicks, Jeffrey Snover was there, who is the godfather of PowerShell, but I didn't get a chance to talk to him. But just good stuff there. Very welcoming, very good community. Did that. Worked at the Rackspace booth a bunch. Rackspace was giving away these cool lightsabers that were like double-ended lightsabers. One side said Rackspace and one side said Microsoft, and you could hook them together, and it was like the Darth Maul lightsabers. Those things were so popular. They had to ration them out. I couldn't even get one the first day because they were rationing them out. But those were a big hit. So Lynn in the chat room, Lynn Dye is talking about how because of this netcast, her and Merrill got to meet each other. They both live in Oklahoma. So that was good. So I did that on Monday. I can't remember what I did Monday night. Tuesday, I had a session on OneDrive for Business. Now, the cool thing about that, and we got a couple of links in here, all of the sessions and all of that, all the PowerPoints and all the sessions from Tech Ed last week. Tech Ed, the last session was done like 4 days ago. They are all out on Channel 9. So if you go to channel9.msdn.com, up at the top, they have an events tab. You can click that, and there'll be Tech Ed 2014. And you can find every session. They recorded them all, and every PowerPoint deck, and go out there. So one of those is the session that I did on getting up to speed with OneDrive for Business with your on-prem SharePoint. And this was a session, I didn't write this session. It wasn't my slide deck. It wasn't my session. Always nervous when I do that. Number one, because I just know that I'm not going to do as good a job as the people who wrote it. But number two, I just, it's like my heart, my soul isn't into it. I didn't birth it myself. And but I think that one went off well. I haven't gotten brave enough to look at my scores yet because I'm afraid they'll be bad. Or watch it myself, but a couple of people that I've talked to said the session was good. But it's all about taking this new functionality in SharePoint 2013 Service Pack 1 that lets you move your My Sites up to OneDrive for Business up in the cloud. And it was a great session, and I think that kind of thing is going to be bigger. And I'm glad that I got the opportunity to do that session Tuesday, because then I got to play with it and research it and all that good stuff. But again, every session's out there. So if you have whatever your topic is, whatever, PowerShell, SQL, Windows, any of that stuff, there's sessions out there. Put them on in the background, download them, and it's good stuff. I'm very glad. I know I've downloaded a bunch of sessions already and watched them. So, but a great time. I don't think they've announced when Tech Ed next year is. There's some rumors that it's going to be in Orlando. Haven't seen anything official about that. Kind of weird that they didn't announce it. But so this was like the 8th or 9th Tech Ed that I've spoken at. I can't remember. I've kind of lost track. But always an honor to speak at Tech Ed. Always. And so I was glad to everybody that the OneDrive session I did, I don't know how many people were in that room, a couple hundred, it was big. Thanks to everybody there. Thanks to the people who came to the pre-con, all the people that I talked to the booths. It was a great time. And all the people who answered questions, because I did the same thing. I had a bunch of questions about stuff. I bothered people at the SQL booth. I bothered people at the PowerShell booth. I bothered people at the Windows booth. All of them, I did the same thing. So another thing, I do all of this on Camtasia. I mentioned that before, and that's from a company called TechSmith. TechSmith had a booth at Tech Ed. I went over and told those guys how great their product was, asked them a bunch of questions, things that I was seeing, make sure I wasn't doing stuff wrong. Those conferences are just great for that kind of stuff. You can just soak up the nerdy goodness. It was so good. So if you get a chance to go to one of those things, absolutely do it. And I think that is all I have on Tech Ed. Now, I've got about 14 other things to talk about, but not the time, because we're already at 34 minutes here. But I'll take a couple of them. So that one I've already done. That's up there. I can delete that. Oh, if you're going to do the OneDrive for Business stuff, of course, you should watch my session. But also there is a white paper out on TechNet on how to get that set up. It's got some tricks to it depending on how you want to do your authentication and things like that. So that white paper on TechNet will help you get that all wired up. Let's do that. Lori, I'm going to move that in the notes. Hold tight with that. Okay, so here's one thing, and I'm going to jump around a little bit because again I don't have a lot of time left. Though a lot of us in the old chat room have one of these little numbers here, the Windows phones. So let's get the glance going here. Hey, you got that? I am running the Windows Phone 8.1, and so if you go out, and I think I've linked this in previous Netcasts, if you go out and sign up as a developer, then you can get the developer preview, which allows you to download Windows Phone 8.1 without your carrier pushing it out. So in my case, AT&T hasn't pushed it out yet, but I've got it downloaded. I've got Windows Phone 8.1. Whole bunch of new features, crazy things. It's got the notification center at the top and just all kinds of crazy stuff. But last week, so number one, if you don't have 8.1 on your phone now, go out and do that. I'll put a link to that in the show notes here on how to do that. But number two, if you have done that last week, like last Tuesday, I think, they issued an update for that. So if you've got Windows Phone 8.1, if you've done the developer preview dealio stuff, go to the Action Center, go to All Settings, scroll all the way to the bottom, and then up a little bit, and there's going to be a phone update in there, that one right there. So go to phone update and check for updates. And if you haven't updated your phone in the last week or so, there's going to be an update there for you. They've been kind of stingy on details about what that update does, but some of the notes that I've seen, like on WP Central and things like that, are that it fixes some battery life issues, changes the music app a little bit. But that's been worth it. I've downloaded that. I've gotten a great use out of that. So one of the things that you get with Windows Phone 8.1 is Cortana. And Cortana is the whole speech recognition bit. So it's kind of like Siri. It's kind of like Google Now. And once you've got Windows Phone 8.1, if you hold down the search button, then you get this. And you can give Cortana directions. She's trying to figure out what I'm saying right now. It's kind of a neat gimmick, but it's got some really great practical things. So a couple of things. You can use it to do all kinds of programming stuff. So when I was traveling last week, I don't normally use my phone as my alarm clock, but the night before I would hit Cortana and I'd say, wake me up tomorrow morning at 7, and it would set an alarm for 7 a.m. Obviously, I could do that any other time. But this is one of my funnest ones, when I did my session on OneDrive, I had my slides and all that on a USB drive, and I hooked it up to the demo box. And I said, I just randomly picked a guy in the crowd, and I'm like, sir, you're responsible for making sure I don't leave without this USB drive. And he's like, well, why don't you just have Cortana remind you? And I'm like, that is an awesome idea. So I fired Cortana. I'm like, in 75 minutes, remind me to get my USB drive. And she did. She set a reminder. And when my session was done in 75 minutes, a little reminder popped up and said, get your USB drive. Pretty cool stuff. Lynn Dye, she used it to remind her to come to the Netcast tonight. Great things for that. But one of the things I read about today was somebody has made a program that will allow you to use Cortana. Well, so I'll step back a thing. So another thing that Cortana can do is location-based things. So Cortana can figure out where you work and where your home is, which for me are the same thing, so it gets kind of confusing. But it also knows where things are at. So I could say, Cortana, remind me to pick up hair gel the next time I'm at Target. And Cortana knows where Target's at, knows GPS and all that kind of stuff. And so she would, by GPS, the next time I'm at Target, she would give me that reminder. And all kinds of great stuff. So one of the things that I've seen now is this company released a program, and it's got a free version and then like a version for like $2, where you can have Cortana wake up your computers, not your phone, but your computers, based on time and proximity and things like that. So what you would do is you would use Cortana and you would say, Cortana, turn on my main PC at 5 o'clock. And there's some, obviously some config in the background that you need to do, but then Cortana, the software component would send the whole magic packet, the wake on LAN thing, and open up, start your computer at 5 o'clock. Or you could say, Cortana, wake up my computer when I'm 5 minutes from home, something like that. All great stuff. So now you can kind of see the power of this Cortana. Now, I will be honest, I've struggled with finding practical uses for Cortana, because all the stuff that you see now is, Cortana, why did the chicken cross the road? And there's all these canned responses. Well, let's just find out here. Let's see what she says. Why did the chicken cross the road?
Her thinking went something like, kabak!
So you can see the response was, her thinking went something like, kabak. So there's a bunch of, fun things like that you can do with Cortana, but I have struggled with practical things, useful things. But the longer Cortana is out in people's hands, the more great things that we get. And so it's been big fun. So if you have Windows Phone 8.1, after you get the the update from last week, start playing with Cortana and see what crazy things that you can do. So Joanne brings up another, I think I showed that in an earlier netcast, about if you ask for the temperature in Kelvin, it will actually give you the forecast in Kelvin. So that's a fun one. What's the temperature in Kelvin?
Right now, it's 295 and mostly cloudy.
Yep. So if you look at the forecast for Ames, Iowa, in Kelvin, it's 295. It's going to get up to 302 tomorrow. There's just all kinds of crazy stuff like that. But again, finding practical applications for it has been tough. Not that they're not out there, but I just haven't been thinking about it that way. But I'm open to ideas. If people have done that kind of stuff, I would love to hear what they've done, because it's becoming more and more helpful to me, and I really like it. So I saw that thing about the Waken Your PCs, and that's new. All right, so one final thing that I'm going to bring up, and I'll just have a whole bunch of notes for next time. For years now, I've been fawning over a video that Brent Ozower did a couple of years ago on how to virtualize SQL intelligently, I guess. Brent is a SQL MCM, really nice guy, has a great blog, does all kinds of great stuff. And he had that video, but it was for SQL 2008, I think, SQL 2008 R2, something like that. Last week, he did a screencast or whatever for Idera. They're a company that makes SQL tools. And he kind of did a new version of that, and he called it Making SQL Server Work in VMware and Hyper-V. Now, I haven't watched this one yet. I've been too busy. But knowing Brent, his material is top-notch. So if you've got virtualized SQL, and we all do, spend however many minutes that video is, probably an hour. Just watch through it. Brent is a great presenter, way better than me. Very funny, very educational. And that will kind of give you some ideas on what to do and not do with your SQL servers. I plan on dimming the lights in the office here, popping some popcorn, leaning back in my squeaky chair, putting my feet up and watching that on the big screen at some point, because I know I will learn a lot if I watch that. And if you don't already do it, go to Brent's blog, and I think you can go to BrentOzar.com for that, and all kinds of great stuff there. He's a good guy. All right, folks, clocking in at 42 minutes, so I will do the rest of these topics next week, I think. And also, yeah, I think the April Cuniv update might have come out since I talked to you guys last. Yeah. So the April 2014 cumulative update for SharePoint 2013 came out since we've talked last, and yes, it came out in May. That'll happen. Go easy on them. The update looks mostly good, though I've had a couple of people email me about a regression that breaks people search. So be careful with that one. If you're testing the April 2014 cumulative update for SharePoint 2013, and God, there's a lot of numbers in there, check your people search, because apparently it's broken some My Sites links, and I've spelled results wrong, and I'm going to have to go edit that page. But other than that, haven't heard any big problems. And right now I've been telling people Service Pack 1 is kind of the way to go for fresh installs. I think that's been pretty good to people so far. So I'll have more on that next week, I promise. And finally, which will be one of the shortest parts of tonight's Netcast, the Shameless self-promotion part. Right now, I've got kind of two conferences on the schedule. July 15th and 16th, I will be in Sydney for the Sharing the Point conference there at the Hilton. Cannot wait to go there. And then the next week, the 22nd and 23rd, I will be in Auckland, New Zealand at their version of that Sharing the Point conference. And in both of those conferences, I will be doing PowerShell with SharePoint Online, and then the load testing with Visual Studio. I'll be doing those two sessions in both places. Very excited to go back there. Had a blast last year. Cannot wait to go back. If you're going to be at either of those sessions, either of those conferences, let me know. We'll get together. I think Rackspace is going to have booths at both of those, but definitely we'll have to get together. I'm going to have to eat while I'm there so we can grab dinner or something. Would love to touch base with any Aussies or Kiwis down there that I know. So thanks, everybody, again. Thanks for 200 great episodes. I've had a blast doing this thing. You guys have made it very entertaining for me. I appreciate that. And here's to 200 more. Hopefully we'll get this audio-video sync thing figured out before then. But thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Love each and every one of you. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next week.